Right, today's presentation is the perceptions and concerns of parents who have a child with developmental coordination disorder. So kia ora, koutou katoa, ko Aotearoa te manga, ko Naisna te awa, no Africa ke te tonga, ko Brigid Hitchcock, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Firstly, I would like to acknowledge my supervisors for the research, who were Professor Claire Hocking and Dr. Margaret Jones, the study participants, and the Aotearoa New Zealand Dyspraxia Support Group for their assistance. Brief background. So developmental coordination disorder is a neurodevelopmental disorder, also previously known as dyspraxia. DCD impacts a children's fine motor and gross motor skills. Internationally, the prevalence of this disorder is reported to be approximately 5 to 6% of children, so a significant number. Prevalence data is not available in New Zealand. DCD has been described as one of the major health problems among school-aged children. Little is known about the ways DCD influences children's occupations from a parent's perspective. Very limited research on DCD in New Zealand. When I embarked upon this research, I had two aims. The first was to explore parents' perceptions and concerns when raising a child with developmental coordination disorder in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And the second was to provide evidence to inform insights into coordinated service provision to meet the needs of these children. Methodology and methods. So interpretive description methodology was used to gain a deep understanding of the participants' perceptions. In-depth, semi-structured telephone interviews were held. These lasted around 60 to 90 minutes. They were audio taped, transcribed, and reviewed for accuracy. Analysis of the data. So we used coding of conceptual or meaningful units, and these codes were then organized into categories. For participants, we used purposive recruitment and participant selection to ensure a diverse range of participants who had first-hand knowledge of and experience of the phenomena. The inclusion criteria included parents and or caregivers of a 5 to 12-year-old child who had a formal diagnosis of DCD. The age group was selected as it is a time where these children are most likely to be engaged in healthcare services. Participants were recruited via the Aotearoa New Zealand Dyspraxia Support Group. 51 mothers and one father expressed interest, so we had a great support for this research. Unfortunately, the one father became unavailable. 9 mothers were selected, 2 of whom had children who identified as Maori. The qualitative findings were reported under 2 main themes. Firstly, what mothers noticed and how they provided support. This theme had 3 sub-themes. The titles drew from the participant's voice, and these were something was a bit off, number 1 support team, heartbreaks and worries. The second theme was going into battle with the healthcare and education sectors. This theme had 2 sub-themes, the ones who fall through the cracks and don't think school knows what to do with him. I'll go into these in more detail. So what mothers noticed, how they provided support. So something was a bit off. Mothers were aware that their child had difficulties from a very young age. These included problems with breastfeeding, their child not latching on, disruptive sleep patterns, difficulties with self-care, play, sport, social interaction, and academic tasks. And mothers' responses varied. They either sought help, with most of them going to see their general practitioner, or they waited to see what would happen. Number 1 support team. Mothers worked hard to really support for their child. To quote, "The whole way it's been me pushing for support." They developed strategies to assist their child with day-to-day life. Some examples given by mothers included following routines really tightly, really clear instructions, prompting, or some stated nagging, breaking everything down into steps. They shaped and supported their child's occupational choices to either develop their physical skills or to provide an emotional outlet. Mothers built up their knowledge of DCD. Most participants had little awareness of this disorder prior to diagnosis. Heartbreaks and worries. Mothers had significant concerns related to their child's emotional well-being. These included their child feeling isolated, not developing boundaries to keep themselves safe, having feelings of inadequacy, low mood, and being overwhelmed. School was a source of anxiety for many. Worrying stopped children from trying new activities and resulted in them losing an interest in learning. Child's self-esteem appeared closely aligned with their awareness of their performance compared to that of their peers. And DCD impacted the whole family. Mothers felt exhausted and judged as parents, and family life was disrupted due to the needs of the child with DCD. Some families made financial sacrifices to pay for private services, while others cut their work hours or did not work in order to support their child. Going into battle with healthcare and education sectors, so the ones that fall through the cracks. There was an initial struggle for mothers to have their concerns taken seriously within the healthcare sector. These concerns often been minimized with statements such as, "It's nothing to worry about," or "He'll grow out of it." They faced long waiting times for diagnosis and intervention, with occupational therapy being highlighted. Could be up to 2 years. Families fought hard for services. To quote, "Everyone sort of went into battle," or they chose to self-fund. So when access to services is raised, the words battle and fight were frequently used both in this research and throughout the literature. Don't think school knows what to do with him. So teachers were perceived to have limited knowledge on how their child learnt and what supports they required. Children found schoolwork to be too demanding, being unable to keep up with either the quantity or the quality of work required. Mothers needed to become strong advocates. And the children's biggest need at school, to quote one of the participants, "They're great kids, they just need extra time and understanding." So in conclusion, there was a high consistency this research with the international literature. This suggests that international findings have relevance to Aotearoa New Zealand, which is helpful as to date little research has been done in this area with New Zealand populations. The impact of DCD on children and their families is significant. Effects are experienced across all childhood occupations, also impacting child's social and emotional well-being. And parents are wanting a heightened understanding of DCD, especially amongst education and healthcare providers. They are also calling for clear pathways for early identification and effective intervention. Mothers noticed that their child opted out of childhood occupations. They developed strategies to assist their child to complete tasks, and they became adept at finding beneficial occupations. For example, team sports and ball sports were found to be too demanding, whereas individual sports with one-on-one instruction, such as swimming and martial arts, were more likely to lead to success for the child. And mothers believe that children do benefit from understanding and a structured environment. There were 2 novel findings in this research, which I found particularly interesting. So 8 out of 9 of the participants were first-time mothers. So ideas to consider would be that first-time mothers could potentially be more cautious with their child, and or that these children would not have had siblings to play and rough and tumble with, and thus develop those motor skills. Many mothers experience difficulty with breastfeeding, their child not latching on, and this does align with the motor coordination difficulties these children experience, and potentially could be a red flag. Both these areas warrant further research. So key message: mothers of children with DCD structure their child's everyday occupations. They support skill development and they seek intervention. It is important for us as therapists to work with parents and caregivers to teach them skills to enhance their child's occupational performance. This study suggests that this is key to supporting these children and their families. We have listed the questions and discussions from the session, and there are a number of knowledge translation questions to be considered for the next session, which are: how can we deliver services in a way that supports caregivers to enhance their children's participation in occupation? What sort of activities may be best suited to a child with DCD? And what are some of the resources and ways we can work around barriers to support service delivery? And I've also listed a number of references. So thank you for your time. Look forward to seeing you at the next session.